Northern Nigeria's troubles began long before the first gunshot, rooted in colonial decisions. British colonizers ruled the north through the Sokoto Caliphate's emirs, preserving Islamic traditions and limiting Western education. In contrast, the south received investment in schools, Christianity, and trade, creating two divergent societies. The north remained agrarian and economically vulnerable, while the south modernized and prospered, especially after oil was discovered. This economic and educational divide bred resentment in the north, where young people saw few opportunities. Identity in the north stayed tied to faith and tradition, not the new Nigerian nation. When Nigeria was unified, these two distinct societies were forced together, setting the stage for future conflict. The colonial legacy left the north feeling marginalized and economically sidelined. The emir's authority and Sharia law shaped daily life, deepening the north's sense of separateness. The south's westernized elite dominated government and industry, fueling further division. The seeds of division planted by colonial policy grew into a fragile national arrangement. This divide would later fuel struggles over power, resources, and identity. The North's sense of being left behind became a breeding ground for anger and unrest. The echoes of colonial rule still shape Nigeria's challenges today. Nigeria's independence in 1960 brought hope, but also inherited deep colonial divisions. Political power often rested with the North, while economic control stayed in the South, creating constant tension. Politicians exploited ethnicity and religion, deepening national cracks. Oil wealth enriched a corrupt elite, leaving ordinary people, especially in the North, impoverished and betrayed. The gap between rich and poor widened, fueling resentment. Calls for stricter Sharia law grew in the North, seen as a way to reclaim identity and morality. Religious and ethnic clashes became more frequent, eroding trust between communities. Many northern youths, educated in Quranic schools but lacking opportunities, felt alienated and angry. They saw their values under threat and their future stolen by corruption. This disillusionment created fertile ground for radical movements. The stage was set for a leader to channel this anger. The conditions were ripe for a group like Boko Haram to emerge. The nation's unresolved divisions would soon ignite into violence. Amid despair, Muhammad Yusuf rose in Maiduguri, preaching a strict anti-Western Islam. He condemned the Nigerian state as corrupt and illegitimate, blaming Western education, Boko, for society's decay. His followers, known as Boko Haram, found purpose and community in his message. Yusuf's mosque and school became a haven for the poor and disillusioned. He offered dignity and a vision of a pure Islamic society under Sharia law. At first, Boko Haram was mostly peaceful, attracting thousands from Nigeria and neighboring countries. The government ignored them, but a militant ideology simmered beneath the surface. In 2009, a violent clash with police escalated. The military responded with brutal force. Yusuf was captured and executed in custody, turning him into a martyr. His death transformed Boko Haram from a radical sect into a violent insurgency. The movement's next phase would be far more brutal. After Yusuf's death, Abubakar Shekau led Boko Haram into a new era of terror. The group unleashed bombings, assassinations, and attacks on schools and churches, spreading fear across the north. In April 2014, Boko Haram kidnapped 276 schoolgirls from Chibok, shocking the world. The government's slow response fueled outrage, but the girls' parents refused to be silent. The #BringBackOurGirls campaign went viral, drawing global attention and support. The Chibok girls became a symbol of Boko Haram's brutality and the government's failures. International advisors and surveillance were deployed, but the Sambisa forest proved impenetrable. Some girls escaped or were released, but many remain missing. The kidnapping exposed the vulnerability of civilians and the limits of state power. The world saw the true horror of Boko Haram's war. The tragedy left a wound that has never fully healed. The event galvanized international action, but the crisis persisted. The Chibok abduction remains a haunting symbol of the conflict. In response to Boko Haram's growing threat, the Nigerian government launched a military offensive. States of emergency were declared and thousands of troops deployed to the northeast. The strategy focused on crushing insurgents and reclaiming territory. While some successes were achieved, the military's heavy-handed tactics bred distrust. Reports of human rights abuses and arbitrary arrests alienated local communities. Innocent civilians were often caught in the crossfire or detained without cause. Regional cooperation with Chad, Niger, and Cameroon led to the multinational Joint Task Force, reclaiming territory and weakening Boko Haram. Yet military victories proved temporary without addressing poverty, corruption, and lack of education. The root causes of extremism remained unaddressed. The fight was not just against militants, but against the conditions that allowed them to thrive. Guns alone could not defeat the insurgency's underlying ideas. The government's challenge was far from over. The war with Boko Haram has created a massive humanitarian crisis. Millions have fled their homes seeking safety in overcrowded camps or struggling host communities. Camps lack clean water, food, and basic sanitation, leaving people vulnerable. Children have suffered most, schools destroyed, education lost, and many forced into violence. Girls face abduction and abuse, trauma runs deep, the region's economy has collapsed. Farmers can't plant, markets are bombed, and hunger is widespread. Aid organizations warn of famine-like conditions, millions depend on humanitarian relief. Social trust has eroded, with communities divided by suspicion and fear. Families are broken, and the psychological scars are immense. The social fabric is torn, making recovery even harder. Rebuilding trust and healing trauma are daunting challenges. The conflict's impact will last for generations. The path to recovery is long and uncertain. As of June 2025, the war is not over. Boko Haram is splintered and violence persists in the northeast. Suicide bombings, kidnappings, and attacks continue, keeping millions displaced and afraid to return home. Those who do return face destroyed communities and slow reconstruction. Corruption and inequality remain, fueling the risk of future conflict. The crisis has exposed deep flaws in Nigeria's political and economic systems. The story of Boko Haram is a warning of what happens when government fails its people. Yet hope endures in the resilience of ordinary Nigerians. Community leaders, aid workers, and activists work tirelessly for justice and recovery. The path to peace requires more than military victory. It demands justice, reconciliation, and opportunity. Healing will take time, but the determination of the people offers a glimmer of hope. Building a united nation means ensuring every citizen feels included. The future depends on addressing the root causes of division and despair. Only then can Nigeria move beyond the shadow of Boko Haram.